Cigar Company is your one-stop shop for all your cigar needs. Whether that's a brand new humidor, a box of those new cigars you've been waiting for, a top-of-the-line cutter or lighter, a place to enjoy the finest cigars and spirits with friends, or the only cigars grown right here in the Sunshine State, we've got you covered. Come visit one of our retail locations for the ultimate cigar experience. Visit us online at coronacigar.com.
How about that cigar?
How about that cigar?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Corona Cigar Studios for episode 270 of How About That Cigar Live. So grateful for having you guys with us live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on Instagram, and live on
Rumble!
And of course, if you're listening after the fact on the audio podcast, thanks so much for making How About That Cigar a part of your regular audio podcast rotation. Click on all the big, beautiful buttons, guys. The like button, the subscribe,
smash.
the smashing button, the bell, all the buttons. Follow, all of the things. Click on all the buttons. Because
do we got a stalker button yet? We need to put a stalker button.
Yeah, we'll put a stalker button. Yeah, we'll have to work on the code for that, but I'm sure it's doable. Yeah, here in the Corona Cigar Studios. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
It is like 8 degrees outside right now.
It's fucking cold.
Yeah, it's suddenly the bottom dropped out when Thanksgiving hit. The bottom dropped out. So, it's winter in Minnesota. Like, I'm surprised. No,
yeah, no,
I'm not.
I'm happy we made it till December 1st before it all fell apart.
Yeah, it's pretty cold. But we normally will jump into sports talk here, but our fantastic special guest also has some, very
inputs about his team,
very good input about sports.
And then I kind of feel the same way. Well, not really. He has a light at the end of the tunnel. We have Aaron Rodgers, who's fucking screwing my team up. So,
well, let's real quick open up with the Spirit of Mystery. This week's Spirit of Mystery is in this lovely glass right here, super dark.
That is a rum.
But Spirit of Mystery is brought to us by Postania Cigars.
Good idea.
Do you find yourself unsatisfied with the top 10 list from How About That Cigar? Are you wondering how cigars from Postania didn't make the HBTC list, but found their way onto other lists? Well, fortunately, you can be reminded every week with this Postania Cigars advertisement. Postania Cigars, the #1 unranked cigar in the industry. All right, so we got a little rum action. It doesn't smell flavored, so I'm happy about that.
Oh, my goodness.
It just smells like natural.
Guy gets free booze every week, and he whines about a little bit of flavor.
I know. I'm just a whiner.
And I made the portion a little healthier.
That's a very healthy pour. All right, so this is better than the rum from a couple weeks ago. This is legit, real deal.
That's like from the
rum
tropical paradise.
It's got a little funk on the back end, so it so I like that one. Ooh, okay, yeah. There's a lot of grassy stuff going on in there, which is not bad. But yeah, I like that. This might be finished in some kind of different cask, possibly.
Yeah, it's finished in a rum cask.
This guy with the jokes.
Or maybe a port.
All right. Let's should we
Hello everyone. Yes, let's get our guest in.
All right. Let's get our special guest on the show. And as always, special guests on How About That Cigar Live are brought to us by our friends at Drew Estate. And Drew Estate announced a new member of the Deadwood line of cigars, the Girl with No Name Lonsdale. The new cigar features a wrapper leaf from Mexico in a slim and elegant 7x44 Lonsdale format that promises a slow burn and a nuanced smoking experience. The Deadwood Girl with No Name Lonsdale cigar is presented in 20-count boxes with an MSRP of $11 per cigar and is available now at Drew Estate retail partners. For more information, please visit drewestate.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you would please help us out, put your hands together, and welcome to episode 270 of How About That Cigar Live from Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, Mr. Steve Saka. Welcome.
I want every last energy out of you tonight. I want you to pass out in a chair when we're done with you. Just
oh my God, I haven't even started drinking yet, and I'm in a sad state of affairs. Oh God.
So what are you drinking and smoking tonight?
I am smoking Salida Red.
Lovely.
I am smoking the Mi Caria Black.
Drinking. Well,
I love
this is an arm's reach, so I'm going to go with a Midwinter's Night's Dram.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Pretty sad when your desk has bottles of booze on it, isn't it?
Did you look behind me?
This is his work. That's usually Monday through Friday too.
Yeah, I'm assuming that isn't the desk you work from, is it?
Oh no,
Yeah.
I work from this same chair. You know, every day.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
I have a little self-discipline to actually get work done throughout the week. A little, not too much.
So, your team is in the same division as my team, and I'd much rather have your team because we got stuck with this piece of shit called Aaron Rodgers.
You're a Jets fan. I'm sorry.
Look, Aaron Rodgers. Look, you can't take away when he was young how incredibly athletically gifted he was. Mm-hmm. He did amazing things. And look, the Hail Marys, those, that he would pull out at the end and the occasional sidearm and whatnot. But I think that we have younger quarterbacks in the league today that have really surpassed what even he was doing when he was in his prime. And I think, look, being a Patriots fan, we always heard the Aaron Rodgers is better than Tom Brady comparison. That was just the way it always was, right? And, Brady pays under Belichick. Brady's just a system player. Brady's at this. Brady's at that. The thing that Brady was that Aaron Rodgers never was that Brady was able to bring his team back and win the tough games.
He was a team player.
Rodgers was never able to do that. And the other thing that Brady was always able to do is he was always able to elevate all of the players around him. Okay. He made everybody on the team better. Okay. Whether it be just because of him setting his example and eating avocado, asparagus, ices or whatever the hell the guy did. Okay? But Aaron Rodgers, the further he got into his career, he always just gave me this kind of vibe of being a bit of a cancer in the locker room.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I don't know why. Look, you're a Packers fan, right, Matt?
I am, yeah.
So you could speak to this better than me. But once you got out of that little window where Green Bay was like doing really, really well, it just seemed like it was more me, and everybody else is the problem.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
Same thing he did in New York.
100%. He was, and he's really crafty about the way that he talks about it, whether it's a post-game press conference or whether it's when he goes on Pat McAfee or whatever.
Dude, he's the king of passive aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So he never directly lays blame on other people, but he does it passive aggressively. He does it with nuance. And
he's a smart guy, right? He's not like a bull in a china shop like me that's just saying, hey, the guy's a cancer. Well, that's my opinion of Aaron Rodgers. I think he's a cancer. And
being a Green Bay Packers fan for his life, and I've been a Green Bay Packers fan since like the Don Majkowski days, early 90s. And I still there's no comparison that Tom Brady is light years a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers could possibly be. Whether you're talking records or whether you're talking MVPs, championships, regular season, team chemistry, whatever it may be.
Was Aaron Rodgers more physically talented and gifted? Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
But things don't all come down to that, right? There's so many other things at play, particularly as a quarterback. I mean, what sort of team leader are you? What example do you set? How do you deal with the media? There's so many other components. How you deal with players privately and publicly. I mean, there's so much more to it than just being an amazingly gifted player on the field. Because if you just go by amazingly gifted players on the field, let's think of all the number one draft picks that have turned out to be total disasters once they hit the NFL and they burn out in 2-3 years to never be heard of again. And they were all incredibly gifted athletes, right?
And ironically, most of them were also Jets quarterbacks.
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you put together the Jets quarterbacks,
I would say you're number one.
The early Jets quarterback draft picks,
It's terrible.
and the early Browns quarterback draft picks, they've just been failure after failure after failure for the last 30 years.
The only team that's worse than us is the Chicago Bears.
Well, yeah, and
but let me ask you the question this way, Raul. I mean, I don't follow the Jets other than just casually, right? So when your head coach got kicked, that came as a shock to me because I thought he was doing a relatively good job with what he had to work with. And it seemed like the team was behind him. But was that not the case? Was he not doing a good job as a head coach?
Yes and no. The year before, when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, he should have had that team playing better because of that defense. This year, the defense wasn't playing up to par. And on offense, he had a bunch of talent. So something had to go.
Right.
But I would have rather have been Rodgers.
yeah, but they're not going to get rid of him.
No.
Yeah, look, Rodgers sells tickets regardless of however he performs, right?
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah, nobody's going there to watch Robert Saleh coach. They're going there to watch Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully, throw some awesome perfect dime to Devontae Adams.
But he hasn't been throwing them like he used to.
Well, he hasn't been throwing them that way for the last 5 years.
And the question is,
here's the other question on the flip side. So I know how you felt in Green Bay about Brett Favre. Not when he went to the Jets, but then when he went to the Vikings, it was like persona non grata, right? It was like a bullet through the heart that he would go play for the Vikings at the end of his career.
Yeah.
But it seemed like time healed that, right? And now Brett Favre has been welcomed back as a son of the team, right? Do you see that in Aaron Rodgers' future? Will Aaron Rodgers eventually be able to return back to Green Bay and be embraced the same way as Brett Favre will heal that wound?
Yeah, I think so. Now, I will say this. If Aaron Rodgers goes after this season is over and he goes to play for an NFC North team, either the Bears, the Vikings, or the Lions, which none of those teams I think would take him. But if that were to happen, then there would be some of that same kind of sentiment that people felt about Favre. And you're right, it dissipated over a few years, and it was just a few years ago that they're unveiling Brett Favre's name up on more than a few years, but time flies when you're old. But they're unveiling his name up on the wall at Lambeau Field, which they're definitely going to do with Aaron Rodgers too.
He did bring you a ring.
Yeah, the same with Favre.
Right.
You get one Super Bowl and then you get your name on the wall. Apparently, do I think that's a little much? I don't know.
No, I don't think it is, because they were both franchise quarterbacks that were icons of the team for a decade plus in both their cases.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think at this point, seeing with all the teams out there, seeing what Rodgers does to an organization just from a sort of
cancer.
Just from an attitude standpoint, I don't think the list of teams that would actually take him is pretty short.
Yeah. Well, I have to assume the Jets will be his last stop, don't you think?
I would think so.
I mean, there's so many young quarterbacks in the league that are.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the thing is too, unless he's willing to work on a journeyman's kind of salary, which I don't think he would, right? I mean, that's the benefit. I mean, every team now dreams about getting that hot young quarterback before they start hitting the salary cap.
Yeah. But I don't think I think Rodgers, this may be it this season. And it's unfortunate for, because he is a really talented quarterback, and he does have an incredible record over the years that he's played. And to go out, the way that this season is unfortunately going to end for the Jets, for him to go out like that is, it's a little unfortunate, but
they always stay too long, man. They always do.
Your biggest fan just seemed to pop up.
Oh no.
Oh fuck. How'd he get in
Oh
here?
man.
And who might that be?
Who is this guy?
I just see.
Hey, Jack Monkey, what are you doing?
I just see some guy.
I came here because I wanted Steve to hear about these two Muppets that he did this show with. Actually, one Muppet, one real cigar smoker, and then one Muppet. The Muppet is
the. You're forgetting the third guy here.
No, the third guy. He's can't be here today, but he's here. The third guy there that's not visible currently. I have a gift for him, and I have a gift for the gentleman to the right and left of Raul. The gift is they are two chubby unicorns, one Don Derma and one Golden Child. But I wanted to make a confession to all those retailers that think we do bad stuff out there, and for people who think I've broken a Dunbarton rule today. I wanted to confess live on TV. The Muppet in the middle, right there, cool Raul. He made a purchase and he made it known to me that he did not want a large ring gauge cigar because he's some prima donna smoker like myself that smokes sub 50. And he decided he wanted Pada Pero. But I tried to explain to him, Raul, it's $200 or 20 cigars, MSRP. Go fuck yourself, Lancero is not 200. So I gave him two chubbies. He actually, a friend of mine and customer, called me to notify me he wanted to take them back. In the shipping and all of this, I said, in the good sport of it, give them to the two guys next to you. I'm going to tell Steve Saka I'm replacing with Pada Pero because I felt having a person with his ability through like these social media channels that troll me, I want him to know it's a real thing. You have to spend $200 to get your Pada Pero. He bought 2 boxes. They don't total $400. He got chubbies and he wanted something skinnier.
Like your pinky.
So what I did for you, Raul, is I only sent you one coffin. There's 2 fucking cigars in there, and you're going to count that as less than your $400 spent.
Fair enough.
Why did you let him in the channel? You know, you do not have to allow people to come online. I mean, you could just kick them out.
But do you not think it's absurd that he didn't want to even try the chubbies?
Fuck them fucking big green gauges. I can't stand them. I'm a Lancero guy or he's got me flushed.
Corona
Gondor. Listen, let them put your chubbies in their mouth. I'm not putting your chubby in my mouth.
It's at this point I would like for you guys so I can leave and you guys can have a great show without me. Why don't you take the opportunity to cut and light that chode, put my chubby in your mouth, and let me know how my chubby tastes in your mouth after you.
Oh God!
Oh my God! Well, yeah,
I'll cut and lights. Put it in your mouth.
I'll light my cigar on the Zycar toast cam, and then we'll talk to Steve about tobacco and cigars.
Real stuff.
Some more football, and you might get fired after the show.
I just want you to smoke the first 1/8 of an inch. Give me one retro. I'm going to leave. I just want you to see what I see.
What are you smoking, Ronnie?
Ooh.
Yeah, Ronnie, what are you smoking?
Golden Child. What are you smoking? I want you to smoke the Don Derma because one of them there's a chubby and a Golden Child and a Don Derma, right?
He's smoking a Don Derma and he's smoking a chubby.
No, you've got a Golden Child in your hand, sir.
Golden Child, chubby.
Yeah, who got the Don Derma chubby?
That would be somebody else.
Why don't you guys cigar swap? Yeah.
I already had this cigar in my mouth.
This is such entertaining podcasting. Your YouTube numbers are going to be crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to be nuts.
Let's
be through the roof.
So we can get rid of him.
All right. I'm so thrown off. Jesus Christ. All right, here's the Zycar Toast Cam. Zycar is the leading cigar accessory brand with innovative butane lighters, precision cigar cutting instruments, travel cases, and humidors. Each product is designed and manufactured with the utmost precision and attention to detail. The result is a range of products that exude quality and refinement, reflecting the brand's dedication to excellence. For more information, please visit Zycar.com. All right, there we go. Now, all that's out of the way.
I'm the captain of chaos. I can't help it.
You're like Loki.
Don't go burn it at 1,000 miles an hour. Just temper, chill, and I'm going to be quiet. Mute me,
bro, not my first cigar. I love you, bro, but not my first cigar.
All right.
Let's talk about the Golden Child blend.
Let's talk about that, Mr. Saka.
Oh, yeah. We look up notes, aren't you?
Oh, shit.
There's so many blends nowadays. I can't even keep track of them all. Kind of crazy. All right. What do you want to know?
What's the blend?
So it's Ecuador Habano wrapper. It's San Andres Negro, the Cultivo Tanto Capote. So that's from the wrapper crop that we use on Sin Compromiso. And then there are 3 Nicaraguans, and there's a base of Pennsylvania seed leaf with Nicaraguan Estevano C98 Viso, a Guadalupe C99 seed Viso, and it's the only cigar I have that has Agrinorsa Lajero in it.
Oh.
So it's a totally Don Derma Golden Child, other than the binder and the wrapper, has no relationship in any way to the original Don Derma. It's a totally different blend. And they taste significantly different.
Yeah, it's different. Definitely. Still a killer retrohale on this Golden Child.
Let me ask something though, Garrett. So you've smoked Don Derma many times.
Who the fuck
I said Garrett, Matt. I said that so because I dialed his number today. Now the whole world knows that. I sent him a text message. Think I was messaging you. Question for you. You smoked regular Don Derma, right?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Have you ever smoked the Golden Child Vitola? The Golden Child blend, the regular size?
No. This is my first Golden Child.
That's why I wanted you to smoke the Don Derma one, but that's okay.
So just to tell you, I think that between the Golden Child, this is my personal opinion, Golden Child and regular Don Derma in the 6x48, I prefer the Golden Child. But in the chubby, I actually prefer the Don Derma chubby over the Golden Child chubby. So, get your tails on that. But so it's just the opposite between the Vitolas. I actually prefer the regular Don Derma chubby, but I prefer the Golden Child in the regular format.
So it's funny because my Dunbarton customers, there's like a consensus group, like the guys that smoke Illusion, Caldwell, Warp, all the guys that were like my guys that smoked all my product in the shop, they all like Don Derma better. It's the more medium body format. It's a lighter cigar. All my Dunbarton guys, my Liga guys, Padron guys, all those guys are Golden Child. LFD guys, all Golden Child. All the bigger strength, and I still think it's like I'm smoking Golden Child now. I still think of it as a medium cigar and smooth. I just feel like the Nicaraguan forward palates all like Golden Child better, and the Dominican palate guys, the Fuente guys, love Don Derma.
All right.
Well, I'm a big retrohale guy, no matter what the blend is. I'm a big retrohale guy, and the Don Derma, I know that was one of the key factors of the blend.
Yeah, I think the retrohale on the original Don Derma is better than the retrohale on the Golden. Look, on the Golden Child, it's much more peppery, it's much more spicy, it's much more sharp. I mean, it's a much heavier blend. I mean, you're basically talking about Pennsylvania sea leaf with 3 Nicaraguan tobaccos. So I mean, I would say I'd say if there's a cigar smoker that's newer to the experience of retrohaling, Don Derma is a good way to go.
You really want to take it slow with this Golden Child.
Oh God,
just let out a little bit through the nose at first if you're not experienced with retrohaling, because if you're not experienced with it, you're going to feel it.
And this Salida Red's retrohale it's a bit of a sinus clear. This one's a little hot. It's a little sharp.
Ronnie, do you have those yet?
Not yet.
If he had them, he would have already sold them and would have made you give him your firstborn to get a box. So, do you still have your children? Then he doesn't have them.
I do.
I got grandkids now.
Can I tell you something though? Like this version of Golden Child, I always say every time I'm like, I don't care what Steve says. When the first time he gave me Golden Child, it took me 3 to 5 months before I finished the samples. And I did a live based on the last one I was smoking, which had 5 to 6 months age on it. And it was such a every retro was like a Cocoa Puff, every single one. And then we got the first batch of Golden Child in the shop, and it was much bigger body, but then much bigger strength. And but 3 to 4 months down, it was all Cocoa Nuance. This go around on this release, they started out exactly like they did the 5-month mark of me already having them.
It's because I aged them longer.
Way more elegant, lighter, on the retro. I don't think
because the reason why was because the Don Derma and the Don Derma Golden Child were made at the exact same time. You wanted Don Derma in the spring, and you wanted Golden Child in the fall.
Yeah.
So they were made at the same time. So the Golden Childs ended up having an extra 4 or 5 months of age on them, longer than the other.
All right. Ronnie, thanks for coming on the show. We're gonna let you go
guys.
now, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Hey, glad you guys enjoyed my chubbies in your mouth sockets. Bye-bye.
Bye, buddy.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Steve. I talked to him today. He brought the idea up to me. And I know how close you guys are friends, so I didn't think you mind. So thanks for
dealing with my stretch. Let's just leave it as business acquaintance. That we tolerate one another jokes.
I love it.
Yeah,
Matt, don't fire me this week. I'll give you a reason next week.
No, nobody's getting fired right before.
Any grown man that does this, come on. I mean, good God, what is up with that?
All right. So back to sports.
Yeah, whatever. So I mean, what right now the Packers are what 9-3? I think they're like right there.
Yeah. NFC North's really tight. It's
NFC North, and you got 2 teams ahead of you, and you're 9-3.
Yeah. It's a really. I mean, I was hoping the Bears would have. The Bears had it. They had a chance to tie that, or tie. Was it tie or for the tie or the win? But the Bears had a chance, and Eberflus some of the worst clock management I've ever seen.
Yep.
In NFL coaching.
Oh, we did what we were supposed to do. You're supposed to.
The Bears had a chance to give, because if the Vikings would have lost, that would have.
We still had the lead on you because we beat you already once.
Well, it still had the lead, but still would have tightened the race a little bit. But
right.
NFC North is stacked with the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers right now.
Another division that's pretty good? The one with KC and Denver and San Diego Chargers.
Right.
Or the LA Chargers now.
Yeah, but I mean, look, KC's already clinched their division, right? They're like 11-1. So you got the Chargers are sitting 8-4. The Broncos, I think, are 7-5. You got the Raiders that are going to beat us out for the first pick in the draft. The rate these things are going right now, I keep hoping. There's no doubt that I think the NFC North is probably the currently toughest division in football. I mean, you guys you're there.
Yeah, I'm actually happy that the Kansas City Chiefs have done so well over the last few years, because all of the conspiracy theorists, NFL fans out there who think that the refs, that it's all rigged, that they used to always talk about the Packers and or
the Patriots. Trust me.
So it was the Patriots and the Packers, and now it's all Chiefs. The conspiracy theorists, it's all Chiefs talk. So I'm just glad that they're not talking about the Packers get all the great calls and everything. It's just that the NFL, this has been a rough year for the refs across the board. And I'm not saying that there's any one loss that the Packers had that I'm like, oh, the refs lost. I would never say that the refs lost us that game.
Right.
But there have been so many just flagrant officiating bumbles this year that I just wonder, are they going to actually ever do anything about this?
All right. We're a half hour into this, and so far we've talked NFL and we've talked Ronnie. So let's give the people something they might want to actually hear about.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the cigar you're smoking right now.
It's the Solito Red that's going to come out. I guess it's probably be the end of February. February we'll do the first shipment on Solito Red. Solito Red is a variation of the Solito blend. It's just essentially just take Brulee Blue. How it compares to Brulee is how Solito Red compares to Solita. It's still the same basic core blend. There's no major ingredient changes. It's just a proportional difference, and then also aged a full year. So it's a stronger blend, and it's in a 6 1/4 by 46 format. So it's a skinny size, red band. I get to charge more money for it because these red bands are really expensive, man. You have no idea. I say that kind of cavalier, but it's actually true. The problem you have with rings are if you need 5,000 like really good quality, high quality cigar bands, they cost you about $1 a piece.
Jeez.
Well, it's just because of you got to buy the emboss. You got to do the pre-press design, which is the same for everything. You got to buy an embossing die that's custom made. You got to buy a cutting die. And then when you run the press, and then when they start the presses, they got to dial it in. So there's so much waste at the front end that essentially when you run 5,000 bands, you got all those built-in costs. And then you have all the waste where if you put 100,000 bands, the amount of front end waste is the same to dial in for 100,000 bands as it is for 5,000 bands. So when you make very few bands, the bands get really, really expensive. Now you hope that you're going to sell a lot of cigars over time, and then costs will get better. But in a bubble, I mean, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So, but no, they're priced the same as blue. Is where they are, which I don't even know what blues sell for now. I'd have to look that up, but they're got to be over $17, I think.
Yeah, $18.
Well, and you've got a lot of your facings. You really like the gold on the cigar rings, and that's got to also add a significant amount to the cost.
Look, the powdered gold adds a little bit, but it's not actually the medium that costs the money. It's the printers you use that can work with the medium. Because the problem is when you use powdered gold to do the bronzing on the bands, it actually causes a waste that is a hazardous waste that has to be properly disposed of. So there's very few printers in the world that can actually use real, like the only one in the United States is Hallmark. Hallmark is one of the few that has the equipment necessary to recycle the hazardous material that it generates to make it to where you can then, put it off as an effluent into disposal. So by using real powdered sterling, powdered silver, powdered gold, when you use those real mediums, it limits you to the printers that you can go to, because they have to have the appropriate hazardous waste recovery equipment in order to be able to use the medium. Now, look, metallic inks have cut. 15 years ago, there was a world of difference between powdered gold and metallic ink. Today, the inks have gotten much, much better that I think to the casual observer, they really couldn't tell the difference. So it's almost one of these kind of like, it looks a little better, but I don't think the average consumer realizes it. And the thing, though, that'll also happen when you use the real powdered metals is over time the bands will they'll take on a patina to them. I mean, the gold on a powdered band eventually will start to slightly go a little verty. You know what I mean? It'll get a little green hue to it. It'll get a little bit of a color, just like your gold wedding band would from you wearing it every day. It won't stay as shiny and it won't stay as bright as it originally was. And I don't know. I like the way it looks, and so. And in the end, I just pass those costs on to the consumer. And if it's going to mean that the consumer, if my cigar costs 3 cents more because I decided, it doesn't even cost 3 cents, it costs about 2 cents. 2 cents more for a powdered gold band versus a gold metallic ink band. If that's the reason why they're deciding to buy my cigar or not buy my cigar,
you're going to be smoking your cigar.
They're not going to be smoking my cigar, right? And some guys are going to go, man, I'd smoke those Sober Mesa Blues if they weren't $17.95. If they were $17.93, that I'd smoke. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, it's always an extension of, you always want to do the best. You know what I mean? It's one of these things where you pay attention to all the little details that don't matter, but they have a cumulative effect where they do matter. You know what I mean? So for me, I think it's important to the overall quality of the brand. And I think it represents the cigar well. If you're going to put all of this effort and all of this time, and you're going to spend all this money to sort and select and craft, that now to shave 2 cents to use a metallic faux gold ink, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Well, and it feels like if we look at a lot of the best, products out there that we enjoy, and when I say products, I mean I could be talking about any brand of cigars or beers or wines or even products that we consume as entertainment, like whether it's TV shows, movies, music, that kind of thing. If you hear the people who talk about these, let's say a film director or something, and they'll talk about the process of making it, and they really are sort of hyper focused on the details. And they, you know, one of my professors in college talked about, you know, when you're putting something together, that you only get to say the phrase, it's not that big of a deal, a couple times before it starts rolling down the hill like a snowball, because it's like, oh, that one little detail, it's not a big deal. And then the next little detail, and then the next, and the next, and the next. And by the time you get to the end of if you keep saying that and settling for that, by the time you get to the end of the process, it's all just going to be mediocre.
Right.
So why not just take the time at each one of those little steps along the way?
Well, the reason you don't is because it adds cost.
Yeah.
So what you need to have is you need to have a consumer that sees the value in it and is willing to spend the money. You know what I mean? So if I'm spending 2 cents extra on every band, and I'm spending, you know, X cents here and X cents, like we use a very particular cellophane. There are much cheaper cellophane materials that you can use, okay, that have a higher poly content to them. But I like the ones that have a more cellulose content to them because they breathe better. Okay, this is something that the average consumer is never going to probably notice. They're never going to think about. But I know the difference between, because there's about 8 or 9 different substrates that you can use to make cellophane tubes out of. Okay. And I happen to like one that's a very particular blend. And that blend happens to be the one that is the most costly because I think it does the best job of protecting the cigar, shielding it from UV light to a degree. One doesn't work perfectly, but also allowing the cigar to breathe. So it's these little tiny things that, you know, and they all add up. And in the end, you'd be nicky-nacky about these little things that are a penny here and 2 cents here. And in the end, it means the consumer ends up paying $1 more at the retail register for a product that could be done, you know, less expensively. But then again, I just don't think that dollar to cut corners actually makes sense. It's just not where I philosophically am. Yeah. So if you're the consumer that dollar is going to make a difference to you, then there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of other cigar options for you to choose from that you can get that. You know what I mean? So I don't feel compelled to do that. I feel compelled to, I mean, always when we started the concept was sin compromiso. Now we could argue about, is it the best blend? We can argue about whether my packaging design is as nice as some other people. I mean, it's always kind of, but for me, I have a certain aesthetic, I have a certain feel, I have a certain look, I have a certain way I want it to be. And to achieve that, I don't tend to cut corners. Doesn't mean that I spend money foolishly either. I mean, it's not like I go, well, this vendor costs 4 times more, so I want to buy from that vendor. No. I mean, you're still trying to be pragmatic about it. But at the same time, I just don't feel as though shaving costs to that level actually enhances the product in a way that's going to make a measurable difference. Now, if you were saying, hey, Saka, I want you to make a cigar that you're going to sell, you know, 10 million of a year, then okay, how do I make a cigar that costs $6? Well, if I'm going to make a cigar that costs $6, well, then guess what? I'm going to be using poly tubing, and then I'm going to be using metallic ink bands. I probably won't even use metallic ink on the bands because those will cost too much. And, you know, you start looking at all the places you can cut, but I'm not trying to make $6 cigars. Yeah. So for me, it isn't an issue.
You know, and all your bands are so different. They're so unique. Put that on there. You know, that's some of your bands, and they're all different, all unique. They all got a certain class to them. Even the Umagog. You know?
Which is you know, one of your lower cost lines. That's no.
Okay, so there's a perfect example. That's metallic ink on the Umagog. That is not gold powder bronze.
Okay.
So that cigar has metallic ink on the band.
And we as consumers, at least we do in this program, we love it. We love your cigars. We love the way they come out, the way they look. And
one of the reasons why I ban them that way is I want each of them to be recognizable without, look, there's a lot of brands out there that I feel like their bands all look the same. They're different bands, but the general design concept is very similar. So like and this isn't to bag on somebody, but just an example. I find like a lot of products from Pepin Garcia, I find that the bands, they have a very similar kind of style to them all. So I think it doesn't provide that easy differentiation for the consumer. So I try when I do the bands design, I like simple things. So first off, all my bands are simple. Okay. I prefer simple packaging. I just do. That clean, simpler look. It's just more my aesthetic. So and it doesn't make it right. It just makes it what I like. But when it comes to band design, I like it to be really simple. I like bands to be very. I know that when you see that little sawtooth pattern, you know it's a Mi Querida. When you see the big ass crown, you know it's a Sober Mesa. When you see that heraldic cross, you know it's Sin Compromiso. It's a very distinct look that clearly identifies that the product is different than the other product beside it on the shelf.
Yeah.
And I try to make it to where the consumer has a chance in hell of remembering what they bought before. Because most consumers aren't like us that are smoking a ton of cigars and know all the little idiosyncrasies of all these branding changes. I don't even know them, right? I'm in my own little world. But the point is, you also want to make it easy for the consumer to identify what they smoked and what they want to repeat. And also, if they didn't like it, you don't want them to buy it again and be disappointed twice. So
yeah,
it works that way too.
Well, and you've been in the premium cigar, premium tobacco world for such a long time that you also, talking again about all the little details that go into it. That most important detail is something that you have a ton of experience with, and you not only have the experience and the know-how to, put blends together, but also you have the relationships of, for sourcing tobacco or finding quality factory partners, that kind of thing. So that end final product, even unbanded, somebody who knows the cigars is going to enjoy that cigar and say, okay, yeah, the tobacco's, it's quality tobacco. It was cured properly. It was fermented properly. It's rolled properly, so on and so forth. And that's like the key detail, but it's just one in a long line of those.
He's like, is he like an advertiser? Why do you let him post up comments like that? Is he paying you?
Well,
why are you sharing that?
We'll let you in a little secret. He is going to be one of our sponsors next year.
I don't count on it, guys.
We'll always welcome you back.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, I think that most factories have people in them that are very talented that could make a higher quality overall product than they do. I think that their needs are much different than what my needs are, right? My needs are very different. I am basically, it's kind of weird. The market's caught up to me price point wise, but when I first launched, everybody thought all my cigars were egregiously expensive. I think I'm now just kind of where most everybody is, right? I think that, but I always knew that I wasn't worried about a consumer below the $10 price point. That just wasn't a market that I was going after. And part of it had to just do with me personally. They're not the type of cigars that I smoke anymore. I don't begrudge somebody that does. I completely understand it because I was there with them. It's just not where I am in my career now. And I don't need to sell 10 million cigars a year to be successful. I can make a higher level, higher quality, more expensive product that sells to far fewer people, but those far fewer people, I hope, are really, really satisfied with what I'm doing, So it's a much, much different scenario. And I mean, and more than, it's much different when you own a whole factory and you're now having to, balance out your workload. I mean, it's hard enough to juggle my own production schedule, but it's much different when you literally have hundreds of pairs and you got to keep them working full time and you got to chew through all the bad material, where for me, I try to avoid buying material that's bad. And when I get forced to buy material that's bad, which I do all the time because you're buying whole crop purchases, I then just lose money on that material and then just sell it off to another factory, or I'll sell it to a broker for them to resell it to another factory. And not that the material's shit, but they're going to use it on a much lower grade product, right? Because in any crop, there's always, I mean, you get filet mignon and you get rump roast and you get sausage, and that's just the way it works. So that's no different for me, but I just focus on the better cuts of meat. And then I only make cigars with the better cuts of meat. And then I charge appropriate for those better cuts. And the consumer gets to decide, okay, do I want to eat the ribeye or do I want the flank steak? Not that there's anything wrong with a good flank steak. I love flank steak too. But personally, I choose the ribeye more times than not, given the druthers. And if dollars aren't the question, if they're not impeding me from making that choice, I'd rather do that. It's the same way as, look, when I used to drink a lot of, Royal Salute and Crown Royal and, Johnny Walker Black, and I don't drink any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not where my palate is. It's not where my wallet is currently, so I drink better. I smoke better. I obviously eat better looking at me. I mean, so it's, and that's so, it helps a lot when you understand, when you're not trying to be all things to all people, you understand what you're trying to do and who that customer is for that product. And you don't make any apologies for it. You just tell people flat out, yes, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a value to you, I can't judge that. Only the consumer can judge that and go, was it worth it to spend a few more dollars to smoke one of these versus one of those? And then that's entirely up to them.
You saying that, but you have one of the best $10 below with the bronze back out there right now. That thing knocks out cigars that are costing $18-19. Yeah, that cigar is phenomenal. So you do hit it.
But you also have to understand, bronze back is a byproduct, right? Mm-hmm. So if you didn't have Mi Querida, Tricky Traca, Black, Red Meat Lovers, you couldn't make bronze backs. So what's happening is you're taking those really good materials that don't quite fit in those, and it makes more sense to convert them into a cigar than it makes for me to sell those tobaccos on the secondary market. So therefore, you have a line like Umbagog. So Umbagog in a real box with a pretty band on it, those cigars would be $12, $13 cigars. They wouldn't be $8 to $10 cigars. I mean, but for me, it works out well because it gives me an outlet valve to use those materials rather than to resell them. And I think they're still worthy of smoking. I think they're still Dunbarton quality, cigar-wise. And the pairs that make Umbagog are the exact same pairs that make Mi Querida and Red Meat Lover. So there's no drop-off in quality of pear. The only place that you have a drop-off in pear quality, and I don't even know if it's fair to say it's a drop-off, but it's a different style, is like in Popetas, right? Popetas they're a mixed fill cigar. So those are bunched much differently than the other cigars, and that doesn't require the same skill set. But even with those, the way we do those cigars, we don't do them as a traditional sandwich. We have a very dedicated blend for it. We sort all the chop before we cut it to size. It's getting the outer edge of the cut off from the broadleaf wrapper. So the same wrappers that are used on Mi Queridas and Red Meat Lovers are the wrapper that ends up on Popeta. It's just the outer shoulder of the wrapper that you have, because you have that short piece of wrapper material that's left over when you do the tenderloin cut on it. And then, of course, we also add long filler into the Popeta. And we also are very careful to do what you would call head filler. Head filler is where you take pieces of tobacco that are approximately 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and you make sure that all of those end up in the head of the cigar, so you don't end up with the little bits and flakes and chunk into your mouth. So even with the Popeta, the way we manufacture Popeta is better than your traditional, typical factory sandwich cigar. And guess what? The consumers pay for that too. It's a $7 mixed fill cigar. You get a mixed fill cigar for $1.85, $2.15. The thing is, it won't taste anything like a Popeta, and it won't burn anything like a Popeta, and it won't hold an ash anything like a Popeta, and it won't have the flavor Well, that's obviously subjective. I don't believe many of them have the flavor of Popetta. But again, that burden goes on to the consumer. Is this a good idea or is this a shitty idea? Am I going to pay this money for this? Am I not going to pay this money for this? And ultimately, if consumers say, hey, I'm not willing to pay this money for this, then I'll just stop making them. I'm not going to make Popettas cost less because they don't cost me less to make. They cost what it cost to do it that way.
I'm curious too about diving into a little bit more for us tobacco nerds and cigar nerds about yield. Like when you buy like 1,000, and I'm just going to make up numbers here. So 1,000 pounds of say, what you would in the end want to be wrapper leaf for Sin Compromiso. But then the tobacco can also have other uses. So when, let's say 1,000 pounds, just so we can even out percentages, like what percentage of the yield would be good enough for Sin Compromiso wrapper, and then so on and so forth down the line?
So see, again, this is where it gets really fuzzy because you have different yield places, right? You have yield coming out of the field, which is how many pounds did you get per manzana or per hectare or per acre. And that's going to depend on the tobacco variety, because certain tobaccos are going to yield a heavier weight than other tobaccos. So they have their own yields. And then you're going to have a yield from that you're going to come out of the polones, because certain tobaccos retain a lot of moisture and they have a lot of shrinkage. So Connecticut Shade, you're going to end up with a far higher yield percentage than you are with Connecticut Broadleaf. Connecticut Broadleaf, I'm going to lose 30% of the weight of that in the polone. So if you're talking about like finished tobacco that you're sorting and using, if you take Ecuador, Connecticut, and I'm pretty much sticking in grade 1, grade 2, I would expect to get a really nice Kappa yield of somewhere around 90 to 95%. Whereas in Connecticut Broadleaf, I'm lucky if I get 40% out of that.
Oh,
and that's the reason why. So Ecuador, Connecticut right now, you're sitting at about $36 to $38 a finished pound. But I'm getting to probably use about 90% of it on average. Whereas on Connecticut Broadleaf, I'm sitting right around 37, 38 a pound, and I'm lucky if I get to use 40% of it.
Wow.
I'm getting to use 40% on Mi Querida grade. I'm getting 40% that's even like worth using. So I'm really only getting like 30%, 32%. And that's the reason why when you look at the yield numbers, those yields are wildly different. But the yield number on the broadleaf I expect to be here, and the yield number on the other I expect to be there. Yeah. And then the other thing that gets into it is you then get into the indexing numbers. And what the indexing numbers are, how many pounds per thousand does it take to utilize that tobacco? So if you take a nice mid-weight Ecuador Connecticut Shade to wrap 1,000 Toros, I'm going to probably get away somewhere around 4.5 to 5.5 pounds per thousand. Where when it comes to Connecticut Broadleaf, if I'm in the mediums, I'm going to need somewhere between, on the good end, I'm going to get like 22 to 24, 25 pounds per thousand. When I start getting into the heavier textures, like the number 1 darks, I'm going to be pushing up around 34 to 35 pounds per thousand. Wow. So that ultimately ends up meaning at the end of all of this, on a typical Toro, that cut of wrapper on an Ecuador Connecticut grade 1, I'm probably going to be sitting somewhere around 34 cents to 38 cents per cigar. Or on Connecticut Broadleaf, to make that same cigar with a Connecticut Broadleaf wrapper, I'm going to be sitting somewhere around $1.14 to $1.22 on average for that wrapper. So the Connecticut Broadleaf literally costs 3 times more. And that doesn't even count the fact that the time expense, the sunk cost, because like on the Ecuador Connecticut, Connecticut isn't fermented. Connecticut is mulled. It's put in boxes and into a heated room. That's the way Connecticut has always been done. And you can use Connecticut Shade. Normally, you could use it the very same season that you brew it. We don't do that. I like to carton age it for 3 years, which adds the cost. It's one of the reasons why brulees cost more, because that tobacco has been basically aged. The wrapper's been aged about 3 additional years. Then went 2 additional years because it's within the same cycle, 2 to 3 years. Where with Connecticut Broadleaf, I have a built-in delay of a minimum of 18 to 20 months before I even hope to utilize that wrapper coming off that fermentation. The fermentation cycles are required. So it's not even just the fact that you have that money. You also have the additional money and the time that you have tied in that tobacco. So there's no any way you could say this is a good yield or a bad yield without specifically talking about what seed, what crop, from what region. That's, because the standards are different as to what's an acceptable yield or not an acceptable yield. So getting back to the Sin Compromiso, that's a fucked up yield number because we're doing that whole cultivo tanto cultivation,
which is a whole different way.
Throwing away half of the tobacco in the field. We don't even let it get to size. So when I say we throw away 50%, we're throwing away 50% of the leaves, but it's not 50% of the leaves. It's closer to like 60, 65% of the weight. Okay. So we're only taking like 35% of the potential weight out of the crop to even begin to start Sin Compromiso.
So just real quick on this yield thing, and I want to go to a tobacco that you mentioned has a relatively high yield, Habano Ecuador. So let's say you purchase a crop, and once it's all the way through to the point where it's in bales and it's in the factory and it's in the hands of the rollers, or in the hands of the sorters, I should say. And then, they're sorting it. Yeah, this is good enough for wrapper. This is high quality for wrapper for this cigar. And then on down the line, they go to the next grade down and they say, okay, this is good enough it's not good enough for wrapper, but this is good enough for a binder for this other.
You don't typically use it as binder because it's too thin.
Okay, but
you don't really get a lot of binder. What you get is you sort out for different color grades that you end up using on lower grade products. Now, in our case, we're only taking the tippy top because I want Brulee to be just, for the sake of just clarity, I've always used Davidoff as the standard for Connecticut shade. I want it to be, I don't like it to be as bright and as light as Davidoff's color sort. They tend to prefer a lighter, more yellow type of Connecticut shade. I tend to prefer a little bit more in the brown hue because I think it has a little more flavor, and it also is a little bit more durable. It has a little bit more elasticity on the table, which I prefer. But quality-wise, I like it to be in that cleanliness level. So then what's happened in the past, what we'll do with that material is I was then selling it off to another factory for them to use on their top-level Connecticut shade cigar. But their top-level Connecticut shade cigar might be an $11 cigar, a $12 cigar, not a $15, $16 cigar. Now, the problem is, as Brulee's grown, I'm generating so much of this Kappa that isn't pretty enough, in my opinion, to go on Brulee or Wagashi or on the Blue, that somewhere in the relatively near future, I don't think it'll be 2025, but there's going to be a point where I'm going to do the same thing that I did with Mi Querida and have that Umbagog product. There's going to be a sub-product of Brulee to start to utilize those wrappers.
Okay. Okay.
And I've already said it publicly. It's probably going to be a sweet tip Connecticut.
Yeah.
Because the goal is going to be to, I don't want to take away from Brulee sales. It'll be a different blend, but still going to be another mild Connecticut shade. So I don't need to have a direct competitor to my Brulee. And on top of that, I also want to I want to get a different customer who wouldn't typically be the Brulee smoker. So that's why in my head, I'm thinking it'll probably be a sweet tipped product.
And at the very end of sort of the yellow brick road of yield, if you've got tobacco left over from that you just say, I can absolutely not use it, then you sell it off at a big loss, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sometimes I sell it off at a loss, sometimes I don't.
Okay.
The thing is, what I do is, look, you try to sell it off for what you can get it for, right? I mean,
yeah.
You're not, but the problem is when you have a whole crop, one of the things that as a buyer, look, they're leaves, they're inconsistent. By nature, they're inconsistent. So one of the things that when you're a buyer and you're looking at tobacco, that seller is going to rate and rank and grade that tobacco. And you are going to mentally grade that tobacco yourself. And your grading really has more to do with not just how the crop itself looks, but how am I going to utilize the crop? Do I have products for all of these different things to go into? And how is this going to work? And if I do this, how much of it's going to work for this product? How much of it's going to work for that product? And the thing that you're always trying to do is you're always trying to buy tobaccos where you feel as though you can sort it better than the way that the person selling to you graded it. So what you're looking for is you're looking for all the best stuff that maybe, because look, you're looking at, you can't look at every leaf unless you sort every leaf, right? So the grower and the broker and all of these people, they're looking at it a much more big picture. This is kind of how it looks. Let's pull out some samples. Let's cut open some bales. Let's pull some hands down from the barn, that kind of scenario. And you're trying to make judgment calls on just taking these small snapshots. So what you're trying to do as a buyer is you're trying to go, you know what? I actually think this is a little better than he thinks it is. I actually think I can get more out of this than he can get. And what we call that is we want to take the tobacco and then we want to cream it. We cream the tobacco. We pull all the cream off from it as much as we possibly can. So the problem for the secondary buyer that's buying after me is they don't have the opportunity to get that because I've already creamed it all. Okay. I've already pulled all the best out of it. Yeah. Okay. And I've left them with what I already consider to be of a lesser standard. So they don't have the benefit. So they're not going to pay me what I paid for the entire crop price. So if I paid $38 a pound, I'll be lucky if I get 18 or 19 a pound for what I'm selling. But it doesn't mean I didn't pay 38 a pound for it. I paid 38. Right. Okay. But I don't have a product to put that grade of tobacco on. So for me, what do I do with it? Do I light it on fire? Do I throw it in the trash? So no, you sell that tobacco at a loss is what you ultimately end up doing. Now, it's much better when you do have a product that's a home for it. And in the case of the broadleaf, I make so many broadleaf cigars, I always needed a home, and because of the cost. On the Connecticut Shade cigars, that didn't really become an issue until about 2 years ago. So right now, I've been basically stacking up a lot of material that I consider like grade 2, grade 3, which is perfectly fine. Look, there's tons of like premium handmade cigars from really well-known brands that get super high ratings that are grade 3 Connecticut Shade. Okay. So grade 3 does not mean crap, but grade 3 is not the same as grade 1. It isn't quite as clean. It isn't quite as pristine. It isn't quite as bright. It doesn't have quite the same elasticity to it. And so I decided a couple of years ago, no, I need to stop selling this off because it's too much cost. And I need to come up with a product to utilize it on, because I'll do better utilizing on a product at that price point. And, maybe I'll do better than break even. I'll make some profit on it, which is much better than losing on it.
So during the process, from the time the seed is put in the ground to the time the tobacco is in the bales, is there an average point during the steps between those 2 points where you and suppliers start working out prices? Well,
look, it depends. So, it depends on what it is. So, if it's like the Cultivo Tanto crop, that's a crop that's being grown specifically for us. So that price is already set before we even do the
seeds in the ground,
right? Because I'm basically funding the crop.
Yeah,
I'm giving them money for the seed. I'm giving them money for the fertilizer. I'm giving them money for the land lease. I'm giving them money for the well. I'm funding their operation to allow them to grow tobacco. So what will end up happening is there will be a pre-negotiated price that for the first X hundreds of thousands of pounds, this is how much we're going to pay. And I have first option on that tobacco. Now, once we reach that point, if you have more tobacco, I get that tobacco. That's part of the deal. But then I have first option on whatever's left. And then that's just a negotiation between us. If he feels as though he can get more money for it, then he's welcome to take it onto the open market. But I have first right of refusal on that tobacco because I funded the crop.
Okay.
Because for me, my funding is to cover what my personal needs are. Those are built into my cost. So that's different. Now, if you're looking at tobacco that you're buying from a broker that's already been, gone through the first fermentation, well, he already has a price in his head. And then it just becomes a matter of negotiation about what do I feel is the value? What does he feel is the value? And it's always a bit of a back and forth, And the thing about it is, the good growers and the good brokers, they don't really try to get over on you, because getting over on your customer is a very bad long-term strategy. It's just for the short term. Look, we're in a business where we always need more. There's going to be another season. So I think in the end, if both of the parties on both sides are intelligent and informed, you almost always come to a price that makes sense for what's actually in front of you. Look, and there are some times where things won't go well for the grower, okay? And you'll just suck it up and overpay for it because you really need the guy to be in business next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, Jose, this is fucked up. You know it's fucked up. I know it's fucked up. You need an extra 45 cents a pound to be whole so that you have enough money to start again next season. I'm going to pay you this 45 cents, but you remember next year when I come back and the crop is nice and healthy, okay, and it's worth more, well, you're going to give me some of that money back, right? And guess what? He's going to say yes because it's in both parties' best interest to work together because we need each other. So it's always a bit of a haggle, but it's done. But the thing is, it's a much smaller universe on the factory and the tobacco end than it is on the sales and the marketing and the retailer network and the all of the part that consumers see in the United States. It's a much smaller group of people that you're dealing with, and it's really kind of funny because there are a lot of people that consumers and the media have a particular opinion on that our opinion is significantly different on our side of the fence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because we have to interact with those people in a much different way than the way the consumer has to interact with them. Yeah. Or the media has to interact with them.
So can you scroll up? We had a few questions I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
One was about, does Dunbarton weigh their cigars?
Yes.
To keep consistency?
Yes. In fact, in our case, so it depends on the blend, but like with all the broadleaf blends, the Boncheros actually have a scale at their bench. They can actually individually weigh every single bunch.
And another question was, any chance of having a Sin Compromiso with a lighter shade on it?
That was Jay Davis.
Nah. I mean, I don't want to say never, but I don't really think that there's a purpose for it. I mean,
when you're in the factory, do you just play around sometimes and just grab a cigar without a wrapper leaf on it out of one of the molds and throw a unconventional wrapper leaf on it that's not necessarily
but not out of the mold. I'll just typically take a cigar that's already made and just tear the wrapper off.
Okay.
And just pass another wrapper over it.
Yeah.
So
well, we've had a couple of our viewers ask about this beautiful thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
I know you said it's old news already.
I said it still 4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago. I love it.
Let's talk about this, and let's talk about your experience making this. And I love the ring gauge, and I have a couple boxes I haven't got into yet.
The experience making it sucked. I mean, it was a bunch of Lanceros.
That's got to be because there's only, I've got to imagine there are only so many people in the factory who have the skills necessary to really make a 38 ring gauge. There's two.
There's two pairs over at Hoyt, Nicaragua that can roll really good, high quality Lancero.
Wow.
Yeah, and they hate, and they just, their eyes bleed and their hands are miserable doing them. And when you tell them, and then to make their lives even harder. Look, the thing that Boncheros hate is they hate different materials.
Yeah,
materials. The girls passing the wrapper, it's a little easier. Yeah, if they're switching between something super light and delicate versus Connecticut broadleaf, that's a bit of a shift. But the Boncheros are the ones that really they're the ones that take the whack because the materials have such a different texture. So when you're constantly having to change the blend on them, they just get disgruntled because they just want to make cigars.
Yeah.
They want to clock out at the end of the day. They want to go drink a cerveza. They just don't care about your nonsense.
It's muscle memory for them. They want to. Yeah.
So when you're doing something like that, where you're making like 5,000 of one blend and 5,000 of another blend and 5,000 of another blend, they really tend to hate you. They really do. But you know what? They don't mind the little extra Christmas bonus they get, though. So
that's right. That's
right. When you get to that point and there's a little bit of extra cash in the wallet, they feel a little bit happier about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's not. It's a problematic project. Look at it, and I know, and it's problematic everywhere. Keeping all the blends separate, keeping just the sorting and the packaging of them all separate. It's a very slow, tedious process to have 10 different cigars that are identical, near identical, and to try to keep track of them all and to make sure they all end up 10 in each box and are 10 different ones. And I've seen some boxes have been screwed up. I've seen some where they ended up with 2 of one, and one of them was missing, and not too many, but I've seen it in about 3 or 4 boxes so far. I'm actually surprised it hasn't been more rampant, to be honest with you.
I'm sure it happens. I'm sure stuff like that happens from time to time. It's, it's when these people work so fast. I mean,
and they're human.
They're human, so it's, shit happens.
But no, it's look, it was I think the thing about that Lancero collection is I think it's an interesting exercise in smoking. You know what I mean? I think it's something that is in fact, it's really just an extension of what we did with the STFU packs, right? The non-sweet, the single sweet, and the double sweet. And I can see it being a concept that I'll do again in the future in a different way or in a different capacity. I'll probably do something with Coronas, because you can't sell Coronas either. Lanceros don't sell. Well, Coronas don't sell very well either. You know what I mean? And I actually have a lot of like good Corona blends in all of my blends, but the couple of times we've added them to the line, like there was an excellent cigar when we first launched the company, Corona Gorda and Sober Mesa, that was one of the very best of the original Sober Mesa, not called Salida at the time, but Salidas, and it just didn't sell well, and look, if retailers aren't willing to stock it, it doesn't matter how good it is. And retailers just aren't willing to stock Coronas. Now, I know there's exceptions to that rule, just as there are exceptions to the Lancero rule. There are some retailers that do really well with Lanceros, and there's some retailers that do really well.
Not many.
But that's the problem. Not many. You know what I mean? So I was actually surprised at how many retailers bit on the GFY Lancero sampler. We sold 3 times more than even my wildest dreams would have bet on that product. I was really surprised. But I think they weren't looking at it as just a Lancero thing. They were looking at it as the experience part of it, right?
Yeah.
I think they were taking the same view as I. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of neat. I'm really into cigars. Let me smoke these 10 different cigars that are all different, and let me keep my notes on them. And you see, I mean, I hadn't seen anyone that's universally the best loved, and I haven't seen anyone that's universally the least liked, except probably the Candela. The Candela has probably been the one, but no shit there, right? But
I've heard a few people say that they really don't care for the Candela in the GFY box. Now, I just heard Jay Davis say in the comments that he loves it, and please send them all to him.
Yeah, so I had a phone conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said he loved the Candela one. So
yeah,
I think you have to be in the mood for Candela, and you have to know what you're getting when you smoke a Candela. If you go to smoking Candela thinking it's going to be same as all the other cigars, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, it's different. It's like if you sit down and
the problem with the Candela is, see, the Candela wasn't even as good when I put it in the sampler that got shipped to the customer as when I debuted it at the trade show.
Okay.
Because the problem with Candela is it just dies. So what ends up happening with Candela is the younger it is, the fresher it is, the greener it is, the more Candela it is,
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that even if you store it in a cooler, it just slowly just loses its life. It's like any sort of organic material, right? So what'll end up eventually happening, and you'll see a lot of candelas in the marketplace. Candela is kind of like more gray than green. Okay. And that's what we call dead candela. The problem is, from really live candela to really dead candela, there's really only no more. There's not even a year from point A to point B, right? And the problem is, if candela was selling well in the marketplace, you could make sure that you were always putting the freshest, the most greenest, the best, the neon of neon candelas. But you can't, because you buy what you need to make the project. And as time goes on, it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. And it gets worse for the consumer too once it's in the box. Candela is one of those things that smoke the younger and the fresher, the more candela it is. Now, if you hate candela, you might actually like the older candela better than you like the fresher candela.
Yeah.
It's less candela-like.
Yeah. Smoke that one last. If you don't, if you know you don't like candela, smoke that one from the box last.
And see, I'd say get the misery out of the way. I'd smoke that first and get it over with.
I got a chubby when you said you were going to make this pack. I love it.
Yeah. Raul's a real Lancero guy.
Also, I know how you don't always love doing like store exclusives.
I don't dislike them. They're just, I'll tell you where the problem with store exclusives are. I always envisioned that I'd do a store exclusive, and then I would get to move on to the next store and do a different store exclusive. The problem is none of these store exclusives seem to die. They just go on forever. So now I end up making the same store exclusive 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, which is good because it means the cigar is really worthwhile and it's good and consumers enjoy it. But here it is. They're still wanting to buy the same. Because look, most exclusives get released in the marketplace and they very rarely get repeated. And the fact that all of mine have been repeated is just miraculous. But the problem I'm running into now is I can't give all of these retailers their own exclusive time in the year to sell their exclusives because there's so many of them now that I can't carve out, well, these 2 months Don Derma will be there, and then these 2 months Halligan will be there, and then these 2 months Barbara Amarillo will be there, and these 2 months U-Boat will be there. There's just not enough months in the calendar. I think, and as you make these things, they and of course the retailers always want more, right? But as I'm making more, which is what they're asking for, they're still selling through them. They don't sell out as quickly either. Now, if it's the first time it's an exclusive, those almost always sell out like crazy. Like they very rarely last an hour, 2 hours. Very rarely 24 hours. But when it's something like, Barbara Amarillo that I've made 3-4 times, they don't fly the same way. But also I'm making 3 times more than I used to make, and it isn't the newest thing, which it was 3-4 times ago. So it's a little bit of a, it's a weird thing. And so I find that trying to juggle the retailer's desire to have their own window to sell, it's just become impossible. In fact, I pretty much have decided, I haven't told them yet, but I think I'm just going to leave it up to them now. If they want the damn things, I'll make them, but they got to figure out when they want to sell them. Yeah. Because me trying to juggle these schedules around everybody is just, it's physically impossible. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Is the Halligan this year the same blend as it was last year?
Yeah.
Nice. I love that one too.
So with the, I'm pretty sure it was Don Derma, but that was where many of us, even longtime cigar smokers, there's sort of the greatest hits of premium cigar tobacco, types of varietals that we see in cigar blends. But you hit us with a little bit of a deep track with that the Comstock tobacco. So are there any other sort of, I hate to use the word unusual, but it's the only term that seems to fit at this time, but any more unusual tobaccos that aren't necessarily in that greatest hits list that you can see coming down the road soon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
wait until I'm ready to sell it. Who cares now?
Well, and I also know that one of those slightly unusual, although it's made a big name for itself, but with Jeff Borshowitz and the Florida Sun-Grown,
right?
I know that product it's either already shipped or it's going to be shipping soon.
It already shipped. It's out. I don't know where it is now. I hope he's gotten it by now. I guess I should check on that because we have the launch party this Friday night at his place.
Well, so that's that Florida Sun-Grown tobacco. It's definitely a deep track tobacco.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you? How long did you have to work on it and sort of work it into the blend the way that you and Jeff
took through? Well,
agreed
not
on it?
Jeff didn't have an opinion on it.
Okay.
3 years.
Oh wow! So quite a while.
Yeah, no, it's been a long fucking pain in the ass. Man, I'm so glad that it's in a box and it's shipped.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a terrible project.
What's tricky about that? What was tricky about that tobacco that just
I don't like it.
Oh, so blending with the tobacco that you don't care for, is tough for you.
It's bad. It's got this really odd sour note to it, and I've just never been a fan of FSGs. And it's not that it's bad. It has this weird kind of twang that's hard to describe. It's not like it's like, oh my God, that's so sour, I can't stand it. But it was never anything that really made me excited. And it was one of those things that was just kind of a running joke between Jeff and me, the fact that I just really didn't like any of the FSG cigars. And so I don't know. We drank too much bourbon one night, and he's like, well, you think you can do any better? I'm like, I have no clue. And I went to the farm, and the thing is, when I went to the farm, I picked out the worst of the FSG or the best of the FSG, depending on your perspective. But I picked out all the very tippy top Lajero, the Corona leaves, the strongest, the most FSG of the FSG, the tobacco that I don't like the flavor of. Let me have the one that's the most FSG. And let me take that. Let's see what I can do with it. Let me see if I can figure. Because look, so for the FSG, you're buying it raw off the farm. So I know that I don't like the FSG tobacco personally, right? For me, and it's a C99 seed, and so I have to assume that everybody that's made a cigar prior to me, when they're getting that farm tobacco, they're fermenting it like it's a C99, right? And so for me, I was like, okay, if I'm not liking the way it tastes, I had to figure out how to ferment it in a way that was going to be different in the processing than what would be the conventional wisdom and the way that I assume. And I'm assuming because I didn't ask anybody else. I didn't ask Agranosa or the Newmans or Davidoff or any of those people that also make FSG cigars. Drew Estate, I have no idea what they do with the tobacco. I just knew that I wasn't particularly fond of it the way it tasted to me. So there was a good 2 years of just playing with it and trying to figure out, okay, how do we ferment this tobacco in a way to get it to a point that I feel as though it's palatable and to add to a blend. And separate of that, you also have the challenge of, I think everyone, well, I can't say everyone, but I've said a lot of people smoked FSG. I think consumers have decided that they really like it, or they've decided it's not for them, which is for me, not for me, right? So you're trying to make a product where you don't want to take all of the FSG out of the FSG because your biggest potential customer is the people that enjoy FSG.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to make a cigar that I personally wouldn't smoke, that I don't personally think is a really good cigar. So it's a really delicate balancing act of, okay, how do I make an FSG cigar that is going to appeal to somebody that doesn't particularly like FSG, but also still appeal to the people that do like FSG? So you're looking for this like really small kind of Goldilocks zone as to where to go with this cigar. And so no, it was a very challenging project. that honestly, you go through all this labor and all this work and all this time, and in the end, there's only enough to, at best, I might be able to make another 9,000 to 11,000 of these cigars off from that crop that I got nearly 4 years ago. Right. Wow. So, like if these are like a runaway hit, I'm literally now, look, I won't have to go through the learning curve again. We now know what to do, but I'm still like, from the point that I pick it up out of the barn, I'm still a good 2.5 years away.
Yeah. From
there being more Black Angus after these first Black Angus are sold through.
Okay.
So it's about as limited as limited can be. And look, it's reflected in the price. They're really expensive cigars.
Yeah. Well, and as you were, talking about it, I was thinking about, because I very often equate different cigar experiences with different food experiences. And for me, for instance, one food item that I really don't care for on its own, but I do like in certain dishes, is avocado.
Okay.
Like my wife can cut open an avocado and just eat it with a spoon.
Yeah, me too. Salt it, put some salt on it, maybe a little bit of chili. I love that. Maybe a sprinkle of olive oil.
For me, I don't care for that. I do like avocado a lot in certain dishes, but just on its own, with salt or whatever, nope, I can't. I don't. It's not for me.
I think that's true of everybody. We all have these things. I don't understand oysters. They're disgusting. They're snot on the shell.
Oh boy.
Oh, I love
them. Right. To me, what's the point of an oyster?
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Look, we're all the arbiter of our own tastes, right? That's just the way it is. And that's why, always with Jeff, it was never, wow, these FSGs suck. Because that was never the case. They just were something that just didn't really suit my palate. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that I would go to the humidor and go, you know what? I want to buy a box of these.
Right.
Because all the previous FSGs weren't good. They just weren't right for me. That's all it was. And I can say that about plenty of blends in the marketplace that are very big sellers and very popular, that for me, they just don't float my boat. Just the same way as there are consumers out there that they don't like any cigars I make. They don't work for their palates. So I think it's just the way it is.
Well, so I'm curious about your thoughts on this, because in the social media age of the last however many years, social media has been kind of big.
Yes.
Everything, all of our hobbies are out there for people to learn about. But there's a part of me that feels a lot of days like we have access to so much more information than we ever had access to, yet people are either A, they're dumber than they used to be, or B, they're so like tribal in their attitudes about different brands or different whatever it may be that it almost seems counterproductive. So how do you approach in the social media age of, just saying, look, this is the products we have to offer, and explaining, enough of the process for the tobacco nerds, yet just enough about the simplicity of it.
For the average consumer doesn't care at all about any of this.
Right.
They really don't. The average consumer.
Yeah.
Is it big? Is it small? Is it light? Is it dark? Is it mild? Is it strong?
Yeah.
I mean, it's much, much different. And for most consumers is it in a size I like, which is almost always Robusto, Toro, or Gordo? And does it fit what my wallet can afford?
Yeah.
I mean, look, the typical consumer is not into cigars the way you guys are into cigars, not the way I'm into cigars, and not the way anybody that's watching this podcast is into cigars. The fact that if you're watching this podcast, you are abnormal. That's just the bottom line. You are not representative of the typical cigar consumer, because the typical cigar consumer is not going to watch three middle-aged dudes sit around and talk for 2 hours about cigars. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
So they want to go in the store and they want to pick up cigars that burn well, draw well, don't offend their palate, something they can smoke with their buddies while they're playing golf over the weekend, or while they're playing poker on Wednesday night, or, hey, while they're lighting the barbecue on Saturday. It's just, that's kind of the way it is. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you as a cigar nerd, there's going to be eventually a point where you're going to check out and stop being a cigar nerd. And you're just going to find the brands and the blends that you like. And you're just going to go back and smoke those on the regular. And you're not going to give a damn anymore about the fact that, well, Saka's got a new FSG cigar out of a tobacco that's got this twang that he doesn't necessarily like. And yada, what I mean? It's just like, it's like so like not even going to be ever on your radar that it's crazy. So it's really, it's a very small group. Now, the thing about the small group is that we all tend to be influencers. We influence the people around us that smoke cigars. We influence the other people in the stores that we smoke cigars with. You influence people that watch the podcast. You guys end up smoking whatever ABC. You really, really love it. And that makes that guy go out of his way and go, you know what, let me try one of those ABCs. So I mean, that's the value of that segment of the population. But ultimately, you as a company, you can't just serve that geek consumer alone.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's only so many of them, and there's a cap as to how many. And the other thing too is with that geek consumer is there's going to be some new other company out there that's got a different story, different pitch, and you're going to fall in love with that. And that's why you see so many brands that, I mean, if you just look at the brands that, the guys were going media crazy over 10 years ago, how many of them are successful now, 10 years into the future? I mean, really successful. I don't mean just around and still available, but I mean,
not many.
Where you get like really jazzed, like, man, I can't wait till so-and-so launches this.
Not many.
So, and look, it's a very moving target.
Yeah. Well, I gotta, so Chris says not Abby Normal. No, it is Abby Normal. That's a Young Frankenstein reference. And I appreciate that Steve threw that in there because that's a legit reference to Young Frankenstein. I'm here for it. I appreciate that. So how much of your time, like, let's say you smoke 10 cigars a day.
Yeah, I've cut back. I think I'm down to 8.
So how much of your time would you say you strictly just smoke for pleasure? Like 10%, 5%?
I don't even know if it's 1%.
Oh man.
Yeah. It's gotten pretty
hard hearing it.
It's pretty depressing, actually. My life kind of sucks. We don't want to go down this. Let's leave this one alone.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah,
the better we do as a company, the more work there is.
Yeah.
And the more work there is, the more money I'm having to spend to try to deal with the growth. The more money I'm spending to deal with the growth, the broker I am. So it's one of the catch-22s of this business. It's such a capital intensive business.
Yeah.
And I'm not in a good headspace for this conversation, but yeah, I would say at this point, I would say less than 1% of my smoking is because I actually just want to enjoy a cigar.
Yeah. Well, with all the years that you've been, working in premium tobacco, premium cigars, because there's so many aspects to it, and you've worked in different areas, from you were a buyer and then a blender, and now you've got your own company and all this stuff. And there's so many aspects to it, from obviously the blending and the design and the business part of it, the dollars and cents and the numbers, of all the different sort of sub aspects of your as Dunbarton Tobacco.
Blending and creating brands. Those are the two most enjoyable parts.
Well, no, but I'm wondering, out of those, even the ones that aren't necessarily the most enjoyable to you, which are the ones where you've kind of been able to glean valuable lessons along the way that you were like, hey, I don't think I ever thought of something like this before, as in the history of specifically Dunbarton Tobacco.
Yeah, but that's on everything. I mean, you're always learning.
Okay.
I mean, there's no one place. It's not like you come popped out and you know what the hell is going on. No, I mean the reality is it's really mostly. I mean, one of my biggest things that I deal with is just everything that's continually fucked up. That's kind of what my job is like trying to unfuck the fuck.
Putting out fires.
Yeah, of course. I think that's true of any small business owner, right? I mean, it's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So I got a question to get off cigars. How much do you load the whole merchandise shit and swag stuff? Or do you like it?
So we didn't really start doing it until about 4 years ago or so. And part of it was I don't loathe it. Look, I like creating those items. But it's just the problem that I have with most of it is I just don't want to buy something out of an Asian catalog or from a U.S. representative of Asian manufacturers. I want it to be like the cigars. I want there to be something extra, something special, something unique, something that is of a greater value than it just being. It's still a tchotchke, but I want it to be a better quality tchotchke. I want it to be representative of the company and of the brand and of the cigars.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot more effort and a lot more expense. I mean, it's really, it's very, we don't have anything cheap. I'm really bad at cheap. I'm just not good at it. But I also noticed that, when you look online, I see a lot of pictures of people using our mugs, and I see a lot of pictures of our little statues, and I see a lot of pictures of the cutter, and I see these things, and there's a lot of other companies that give away a lot of stuff, and I don't see very many photos of their things, so if you're going to go through the effort, you want to make sure that you're getting the marketing value out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because again, I know there are people that collect some of our hats and our mugs and all that stuff. I get that, right? But I'd like to think that's like the cherry on top. Yes, that's not the reason they're buying the product is to get the mug. They're just buying the product, and the mug is a bonus that comes on top of it.
Yeah.
But if anyone's just buying the cigars to get the junk, then I don't know what to say. I don't. To me, it's the product first, and the other part is just to be representative of the product and the fact that you like the product. And I hope that the extra item is really worthy of you using. I hope the mug is worth you drinking your coffee out of the morning. Because look, we all have a gazillion mugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we all have our favorite mugs too. The ones the one that we're like, oh man, I'm glad that came out of the dishwasher because that's one of my favorites. So you kind of want to do that. So that makes the bar a little higher, even for that stuff. And particularly when you're talking about a company like us, that the big companies have people that are just dedicated to just doing that.
Yeah,
sourcing, developing, manufacturing, keeping track of swag, negotiating prices. I mean, that's like literally a full-time job in the large companies. That for us, it's it's something when I get to it kind of thing. Look, we didn't have a cigar hat for what, 8 years?
Yeah.
And you think a hat's one of the simplest things, right? I mean, you can get a hat from anyone. I never could find a hat that I really liked. I could never get a patch that I really thought was good. The leather was either too thin, or it was too plasticky, or it was just the embossing of the burn wasn't right, or the stitching was sloppy, or whatever. You know what I mean? So you go through. I go through a lot of samples. I pay an obscene amount of money for prototyping on everything. On prototyping cigars, on prototyping swag. I mean, just an obscene amount.
Well, and there are some of the massive companies that have teams of people that's all they do.
Yeah.
That's all they do is swag.
I don't know about teams, but there's definitely one person, right? Mm-hmm. So But yeah, no, look, it's a big part of our industry, but we don't tend to do a lot of physical events. So it's not like we're really having to do stuff to have like giveaways at events very much.
Yeah.
But yet consumers expect there to be something, right? The problem I have is, so like, if you buy a box of Mi Queridas and it costs $200 for you to buy it, I got $100 wholesale, and I give you a hat. That hat cost me $16. I don't make $16 in profit on the box. I make 5 to 7%. Let's be generous and say I make 10%. It means I made $10. So you spend $200 at a store, I made $10 profit, and I just handed you a $16 hat. So I lost $6 when you bought that box of cigars at the event.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm hoping that you like the hat enough that you'll actually wear the hat. Okay, that you'll actually promo the brand. And you notice, like with most of our swaggy items, I tend to kind of make the branding a little subtle so that you don't feel like you're a walking Tommy Hilfiger shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where the branding it's there, but it's discreet enough that you can wear that cap and you could go to your summer barbecue with your non-cigar friends, and it's still a really nice looking hat. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, so I try really hard. I think most of the shit that we get given with our cigars, I mean, normally, like even like when they make event only cigars, so many times the event only cigars suck. They're like such lower quality products, right? And the reason why is because they're trying to minimize the cost. It just doesn't make sense to me. If you got a guy who comes to an event, you want to give him something that actually has merit. Actually, you want it when she buys that box and she takes home those 2 pot of Paros, that like it actually feels like she got something of value, of note, of worth. You know what I mean? Where so many companies, even their giveaway cigars are like, they're just kind of like, they're not even nearly as good as the product that you purchased. Yeah. It seems to me counterproductive, counterintuitive. And if you're giving away these Asian-made whatevers that are just coming out of a catalog, then all that shit ends up breaking. You know, that lighter works for a week. That cutter ends up dull within 2 weeks. It's just you don't feel that there's no value in it, and you don't feel that there's any value in it.
Yeah.
So to me, I just don't. That's just not my thing. You know.
Well, you want the cigars that carry your company's name to be the cigars that people want to reach for in their humidor at home. And you also want, if you're going to put out a cutter or a hat or a mug with your company's name on it, you want it to be the one that the person wants to reach for.
I want it to be comparable to the quality of the product that I think is the cigar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's not that, I want it to be at least unique enough. Okay. Because look, let's not kid ourselves. The little plaster monkey things, they're not like some super piece of art, but they're unique. They're different. They're unusual, right? Where it's something that, okay, here's something. I'm actually surprised that I saw Abe copied it this year for his Summer of Saka promotion by making something. But you would think that, I've gone through like 40,000 of the little smoking Sasquatch statues, right? You would think that other companies would have already copied this.
Yeah.
But they don't, because you got to make it. You got to develop it. You got to get a custom mold made. It literally takes you to get that first Saka Squatch made. I was already $15,000 in the hole and 18 months worth of time back and forth to get the Saka Squatch number 1. You know what I mean? So it's not the way they look at it. They don't look at it as, oh, this is a very big branding thing that I think people are going to put in photos and prop their cigar on and all of this and that and blah, blah, blah. They're thinking about, okay, if a guy buys a box of cigars and I make $7 to $8 on that box of cigars, I got to give him something that costs me less than $3. Right. What can we get for less than $3? Well, let's flip through the catalog. We all have this. Look, we all know the same suppliers.
Yep.
They sell to everybody in the industry. how many more of those shrink wrapped ashtrays, ceramic ashtrays, right? Do any of us need? I mean, that's just a standard ceramic ashtray that they just put a heat shrink label on, boom, boom, boom. They look attractive, but in the end, they're just cheap Chinese ceramic ashtrays. That's what they are, right? It's like everything else, you know, whereas I make a custom shaped crystal ashtray, you know, that ended up going through 5 different factories, I think, before we could finally get one to do it right. You know, probably spent almost 3 years dicking around with that dopey ashtray. And in the end, the ashtrays end up costing an obscene amount of money to manufacture that you can't even give it away. You can't even sell it.
Yeah.
Because it's so crazy how much it costs that just asking for what it actually would retail for is like absurd how much it costs to have something like that. So what ends up happening is it basically ends up becoming a grand prize, a raffle prize, some sort of extra something. You know what I mean? Because that's the only way I can get value out of it, because I can't even sell it. Because literally that glass ashtray, if you sold it for retail, it'd be $500.
Yeah.
That's what that ashtray would be. Now, is that crazy? Yes, it's crazy. I agree. It's absurd. But guess what? Go out and make your own custom crystal ashtray. Okay, and then come back to me and tell me what your experience was. You know,
and how much you had to pay out of pocket for it,
and how much did you have to pay out of pocket to actually get to the point that you have a finished thing in a box that isn't a piece of junk.
Yeah,
you know? It's much different than when you just, hey, let me just take a glass ashtray that's already in the market and let me slap a sticker underneath it and bing, bam, boom. Because even that, you know, getting the print right, getting in the center right. I mean, the details are so important, right? Because if it's just a little off, whereas when you get that heat shrinked whatever ashtray, they're a dime a dozen. You don't pay as close of attention to it.
Yeah,
I do like the Christmas ornament. It's pretty cool. It's heavy as hell too. It was a lot heavier than I thought it was. I grabbed it. I'm like, holy shit! What is? Man,
but you know what? There's a problem with the Christmas ornament, which I learned. I think it's a little too heavy. I think it needs to be a little lighter.
It's gonna hang out. It's gonna pull a limb off.
You got to put it on a big. You got to put it on a big branch. That thing's it's a little, but you know. But then again, it's also the same problem. You make it too delicate, then it breaks like a Christmas ornament.
Yeah,
and you got to ship these things. And look, we do a great job of packing, but I see the way retailers ship stuff to consumers all the time.
Oh, forget about it.
I mean, so many of them do such a shitty job packing what they send to their customers. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You get this box with 2 air pillows in it, right? Nothing but like they don't fill the voids. They don't pack it nice and tight.
Yeah.
So I have to take that into consideration that you know, these retailers are going to have to ship these Christmas orders to customers, and it needs to be durable enough to endure holiday shipping via UPS or USPS.
I don't think that's going to be on many trees. I think guys are just going to put them right by the statue and keep them and take pictures of them. I don't think there many of them are going to go on trees.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I don't even care.
So what do you think? Is it time?
I think it's time.
You think it's time?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. It is now time for this week's Numero de los Muertos. Numero de los Muertos, brought to us by Smoke Inn. All right. Numero de los Muertos, episode 270.
Can I interject really quick?
Please do.
So on the TGS, I saw Abe's obviously a sponsor. And so at the dinner, so this year we're going to launch a new red meat lovers called Fratanga.
Nice.
It's a stronger blend, a little spicier, a little bit more peppery. And we're going to offer it that night at the dinner only. And it'll be the only place that you can get a Fratanga. So there you go.
Awesome. Love it.
So let's get on to the dead thing.
The dead thing. All right. So the number this week, 250 people on average per year in the United States die from this.
250 a year in the United States.
Yep. On average, 250 people in the U.S. People who got hit by a Zamboni. No, Allison.
That's only 5 and it's in Minnesota.
Yeah, they're probably all in Minnesota.
Or Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
Land or sea? Death by fishing.
Death by fishing. How do you die from fishing?
You're fishing in a
fishing could have a partial. I'll say partial.
Overdose on vitamin C.
No, not overdose on vitamin C.
Skydiving.
No, not skydiving, not hanging Christmas ornaments, not eating cow. Jay Davis, who hurt you? Eating cow manure? Who eats cow manure? Choking on a turkey bone. Consumption of red meat. No, that just makes us healthier.
All right. So is it some sort of animal death caused by an animal?
No, not caused by an animal.
So no reptile, no bug, no anything.
Correct.
All right.
An answer if it was land or sea.
Water.
Yeah, but it's not a shark because that
not
would
sharks.
Right, animal. I don't think there's 250 shark deaths a year in the United States. That would be.
Jesus has the correct answer.
Going through the ice.
Ooh.
Yep. So in the United States, an estimated 250 people die each year after falling through ice-covered waterways.
So half the South don't even know what that is.
I know. So we do this thing in the North called ice fishing. It's like 2% fishing and 98% smoking cigars and drinking and playing cards. Yeah, it's a very, very little fishing actually takes place. It's mostly just cigars and poker and
I'm doing it March 1st. I have an annual cigar event where we do ice fishing.
Yes,
one of our New Hampshire retailers.
Nice.
Yeah, and if you live in a state where ice fishing is uncommon, then you owe it to
one
yourself.
Today in Woodbury, Minnesota.
Oh, one today. Oh, well, I mean,
okay, let's stop for a moment, Kelly. I mean, is it cold enough for the ice to even be remotely thick enough for someone to even entertain getting on the ice at this point? I mean, like I won't touch ice that's less than 6 inches.
Yeah, it's way too thin. It just started getting cold on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're not even close to like being able to go on the ice. I mean, here in New Hampshire, I mean, we're still probably another month away before I would consider ice fishing to be a realistic thing to do. Now, oddly enough, you could be on the ice going into early spring, right? So it's the other way around. It's like we're going to do the ice fishing in March, right? But you've got the winter ice, so the ice is already like 2 foot thick, and you're just kind of melting off the top at that point.
Yeah, going out. I see people going out with their with their those long steel, pokers testing ice when the ice is barely an inch thick. I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you go through the ice, then
your own fault.
It's on you.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'm just trying to think. I mean, typically you're looking at 3 inches or less. You shouldn't be on the ice. About 4 inches, you can walk on it or skate on it. It's like 6 inches, which I use 6 inches because that's where they say it's good for snowmobiles.
Yep.
So for me, 6 inches is like that's where my minimum standard is. 6 inches of ice. Okay, I'll get on the ice. Anything less than that, I'm not doing it.
No, yeah, no, forget about it. And even when I go way up by the Canadian border, and you have to put an extension on your auger just to drill holes to ice fish because they're literally more than 3 feet thick. You still, I mean, even though everything's fine, when that ice shifts and you hear those noises,
cracking the noise, yeah.
Well, your sphincter still puckers up. I don't care if the ice is 3 feet thick or 3 inches thick. You still pucker up a little bit when you're out there.
You need what, about 15 inches of ice for like a truck, I think.
15, yeah, that's about safe. Yeah,
it's like right around there. But I mean, I know that like they say like 3 to 4 inches is like 4 inches is good for a person to be on, but not if you're like in a group. If you're in a group, you need typically like 6 inches.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're like spread out, anything less, like I said, 6 inches is my like bare minimum.
Yeah.
And that's 6 inches going into winter, not 6 inches going into spring.
Oh, 6 inches of ice going into spring. The ice
Hard.
gets all.
It's already all melted around the edges and everything. Yeah. You can't even get to the ice anymore.
It's like it's spongy and it's that's actually more dangerous to me than the early ice when it's only an inch thick in November or early December like it is right now. Yeah, you just shouldn't be out there right now.
Well, look at that. You got a PSA in there for all those people from Georgia who've never known anything about ice.
There you go.
Now they know, hey, if there isn't 6 inches of ice, don't walk on it.
That's right. Shooting star, the more you know. That's right. All right, let's reveal this week's Spirit of Mystery, brought to us by Postania Cigars. As you can see, I really hated it. No, I'm joking. I have one tiny little sip left in the glass. This is a good rum. It's it doesn't. The thing I like about this rum is it just tastes like natural rum. It doesn't taste like there's added sweeteners. There's no flavorings. It just tastes like good natural rum. It's got a little funkiness and grassiness on the finish, which I like in rums because that means it's not overly sweet. There are some rums that are just way too,
like the one you had last week was too sweet.
The one, yeah, that last one was way too sweet. But this one I like. As for guessing what it is, it's I'm leaning in the I'm leaning in the direction of
it's not Bacardi.
Diplomatico.
No.
But
Diplomatico's kind of sweet though. You should be able to recognize that one.
Well, the
Diplomatico has a lot of sugar in it.
The nose on this though is like pure brown sugar. I mean, nose is so sweet, but the finish is really kind of neutral and grassy and nice. But yeah, Diplomatico was the only round I had in the chamber, so I don't know. This is Chairman's Reserve, the Forgotten Casks. Pot and column still blend.
Good God.
St. Lucia. This is from
what was that?
How would you ever guess that?
Yeah, I'm not going to guess that.
Because he drank it 6 months ago.
Did I really? I've had this rum.
You've had all the rums that you're going to be having.
I have not. I have not had all the rums from your collection.
You've had all the ones that are open.
Oh well, yeah. This is from St. Lucia. It is, extra aged, and it is, pretty much all rum is 80 proof, unless you get some really good higher proof stuff. But yeah, this is a good rum. I would definitely drink this again. So yeah, that was this week's Spirit of Mystery. Let's jump into the lightning round. Brought to us by J.C. Newman Cigars. J.C. Newman is America's oldest family-owned premium cigar maker, creators of the popular Brick House, Perla Del Mar, Diamond Crown, and The American. J.C. Newman Cigar Company operates out of their 113-year-old El Reloj Cigar Factory in historic Cigar City, Tampa, Florida. For more information on their cigars or their visitor experience, please visit jcnewman.com. I'm digging deep in the
yeah, you've been on the show a few
times.
I don't have a question.
Did we? I think we did the zombie question. We did the fast food question.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. So, all right, let's
do the animal thing.
Oh, that was kind of messed up, but it's all right. So, if you could switch, if you could have any type of animal legs instead of your own human legs, what animal would you want to have the legs of?
Huh. Yeah, this is a muffed up question.
I know.
Okay, any kind of legs. I guess I'm going to go with the ones that are the most close. A bear's legs for me, I guess. I don't know. I never really thought about this.
I like that.
I got to admit, this is not something I've ever entertained.
Yeah, it's well. That's good for a lightning round question. All right. So if you, oh
wait, you guys don't answer the question too?
I said a T-Rex. I've always said a T-Rex.
Yeah, Raul always said T-Rex. I don't know if I've answered it.
No, answer it up.
A centipede.
A centipede?
Just because I'm mentally ill. I have serious issues. Yeah, a centipede, or yeah, I'm going with centipede. It's just because it's weird.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
You've watched Human Centipede too many times.
I've never seen that movie, and I never ever want to. Gross. All right. So, Steve, if you were given your own late night talk show,
yes,
who would you want to be your first celebrity guest?
I want Robert De Niro so I can punch him in the face. What happened to that dude?
He used to be so
cool. How did he so go off the rails?
He used to be so cool.
Like I can't even stand to watch a movie he is in now.
Lawrence Fishburne in it wasn't Lawrence Fishburne. It was Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
In one of the movies.
Oh, he'd be a good guest. Samuel L.
He
Jackson.
shoots him and he goes, "What happened to you? You used to be beautiful.
Oh,
you used to be beautiful."
Oh, and Jackie Brown. Yep. Your ass used to be beautiful. Yes, that was. Yeah, Robert De Niro. Anytime that the people in the public eye, like actors or musicians or whatever, just dive so deeply into political issues that you've.
Oddly enough, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when they just get to be so just asinine about it, right? That's the part that's the part that just drives me totally wonky.
Right.
I mean,
because it does take you out of it when you go to watch them in a movie or see them in a concert. It just
totally ruins it, right?
It takes you out of it.
I don't expect anybody not to have a political point of view. I get it. We all have points of view and perspectives on things. And I'm happy. Like, you know what? Bill Maher. I would love to have a conversation with Bill Maher. Okay, I would find that to be a really enjoyable way to spend a couple hours. You know, and him and I don't agree politically on a lot of things. But that would be a very enjoyable conversation. Robert De Niro, man, when did he become such a whack job?
Yeah, I don't, to say this sounds kind of condescending, and I swear I don't mean it that way. I'm genuinely sad to see this sort of demise, because just and again, everybody's allowed. Well, you can have whatever fucking political opinions you want to have in the world. I do not care. But when it so just paints your image as a person in the public eye as that's what you're all about, and so it's like that's what he's all about now, instead of the characters and the acting and the performance.
Right? You can't look beyond it.
Exactly. Yeah. We did that one. Oh, favorite flavor of ice cream.
So this has switched over the years. So it used to be pistachio, and then it became dulce de leche.
Oh yeah.
But lately, I like the completely non-flavored ice cream, the one that's called just sweet cream. It's like super. It's like not even vanilla. it's like literally like almost unflavored ice cream. I don't know. I like it because it then lets me pair something with it that it doesn't, like, the ice cream doesn't dominate. But if we were talking about just to eat ice cream out of the container, it's probably dulce de leche, something caramelly. It could have a little bit of chocolate in it. What I don't like in ice cream is I have to be in the mood for something. I like my ice cream to be super creamy, so I don't tend to like things that have a lot of chunks in them. Like, I don't tend to like ice creams that have like big pieces of nuts or big pieces of chocolate or big pieces of cookie or anything like that. I like my ice cream. So for me, the texture is even more important than the flavor, because look at me. I'm not passing on any ice cream, right? So I mean, a good Tunisian, vanilla is good. A good chocolate is good. A good berry ice cream. Black raspberry. I really love black raspberry.
Oh yeah,
that's one of my favorite ice creams. So we get black raspberry up here in the north, New England. And the other thing that we get up here is we also get Maine wild blueberry ice cream, and I really like that too. But the blueberries, again, and it has to be chopped really, really fine, because I don't want it to interfere with the texture of the ice cream.
Yeah.
And look, if I want big chocolate candy chunks of my ice cream, give me the plain creamy ice cream, and then I can decide to add my own chunky stuff to it when I'm in the mood.
Okay. What about you, an ice cream, Raul?
I'm a vanilla guy.
Really? Vanilla? You, like as a canvas for toppings, or just?
No, I just like vanilla ice cream.
Okay.
I like my sweet cream ice cream. Sweet cream is even less vanilla than vanilla. Just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love just having plain vanilla ice cream that I can put, I can throw some berries or something like that on, but just as commercial ice cream flavors go, I absolutely love Cherry Garcia. It's just
popular one.
It's so good.
I would bet that's probably like, that may be one of their like top 5 sellers.
It's got to be. Yeah.
They used to make one called a rum raisin.
Yeah.
That for some reason reminds me of my grandmother.
Oh yeah.
And if I could find that, I'd get a pint of that.
I love
Destroy it.
All right, let's jump into this week's Notable Smokables, brought to us by Don Doroteo Cigars, a brand with both purpose and passion, dedicated to creating change from within. By developing their own land, they're able to own the entire process throughout the life cycle of the plant. They methodically carry out each step, ensuring that the final product is of the finest quality. The new Salt of the Earth lines, Piedra Viva and Piedra Angular, are available now at Don Doroteo Retail Partners. Visit dondoroteo.com to learn more. So, Steve, you've been through this with us before. We each name a cigar during notable smokables that we smoked recently that was notable to us. Could be a cigar that's been on the market for decades that we retried for the first time in a long time, or a cigar that's brand new to the market that we tried for the first time ever.
I'm going to use this as a pimping opportunity.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, you're smoking mostly your own stuff.
I'll tell you what cigar is really amazing. Yeah. Obviously, Salida Red that I just smoked is excellent. But I did a cigar for the Cigar Association of New Hampshire that we're going to be releasing. I'm not quite sure exactly. I'm waiting for the bands at this point. But that's a really good blend. I think that's gonna be nice. It's a nice cigar. The CNA. Okay. Yeah, the Fiddlehead is what it's called.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so I think that one's gonna be I think that one's gonna be really, really popular.
Okay. Raleigh, what about you? Notable this week?
Well, I've started this new thing I talked to you about earlier. Whichever guests we're having on that Monday, I'm going to try to smoke their stuff all weekend.
Yeah.
And I have a slight collection of your stuff.
A slight, yeah. I've seen your collection.
But I keep going back to the Papa Saka.
Yeah.
I just love that stick. I just love it.
I smoke a lot of Papa Sakas.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been going with most of my notables for like the last few months have been older cigars.
Yeah.
And again, I had a box of older that Hoya de Nicaragua, the Antonio Dark Corojo, when the bands used to be just like they had one sort of smaller main band and then a little foot band,
right?
With the really curly old school letters on them.
Yeah.
And I probably bought this box back in 2014, 2015, something like that.
No, earlier than that, because I was the one that actually did the design on that product.
Okay, so that's
that would have been when I was at Drew.
2010.
That probably would have been somewhere like around 2010, 2011.
Okay, and I'm just always curious to see after a while, but it's only 15 years, 14 years old this cigar is maybe. And there was really not much loss in power or flavor. There was plenty of, and one of the notes that I always loved in that cigar was it's kind of that dark, like dried fruit kind of raisiny sort of element that it just reminded me of like dried raisins or prunes or something like that, with that just deep, dark, molassesy kind of sweetness. And it delivered even as old as the cigar was. Smoking it day after Thanksgiving. My wife and her sister were out shopping and smoked that day after Thanksgiving and really, really enjoyed it.
I'm a little jealous. For the last 5 years, I got a collection.
Yeah,
for that 5 to 7 years, I got a pretty solid collection. But you've been bringing up all these old cigars, and you've been bringing them up, but not bringing them out.
I do bring them out. I do bring them out.
You bring them out and you smoke them.
I'll bring out some more. We're coming up on Christmas time.
Yeah, buddy.
We're coming up on Christmas time. All right, let's get to coming attractions for the next couple weeks on How About That Cigar Live. Coming attractions brought to us by Hoagland Insurance, and they are excited to serve and educate any new customers and give existing customers a refresher course. Whether it's a business policy, auto insurance, home policy, or life insurance, if you are currently insured or just looking for a quote, Tony Hoagland and his team would love to create a personal price plan just for you. Mention How About That Cigar when you make your first appointment, and Tony will have a free cigar just for you. For more information,
is he like a relative, or how do you get this advertising? This is a weird one. Where did this come from? Is he like a relative? He's like a friend of the program.
This one's definitely local.
Yeah.
This one's definitely local. For more information, please call 763-421-4900 or visit ChamplinInsurance.com. All right.
We'll talk in the back room about this. We'll talk when we get out here.
All right.
Next, a weird advertiser on a nationwide podcast.
You never
in Minnesota.
You never figured that State Farm Insurance would be sponsoring a cigar podcast, but here we are.
Here we are.
All right. Next week, December 9th, we have Nick Melillo from Foundation Cigar Company rescheduled. He was supposed to be on a couple weeks ago, but it's all good. He'll be on next week. And then December 16th, this will be the final show of 2024, and that will be our year-end review. Not the cigar of the year, but year in the review. We'll go through the box of bands and talk about what we smoked, talk about some of the big events in the world of premium cigars over the year of 2024, and that will close out the year for us. It's been a great year, so we really look forward to those shows coming up. Steve, if you would please give our viewers and listeners an idea, where is the best place for them to keep up with everything going on with Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust?
Definitely in my case, Facebook, right? Until they kick me off permanently, that's where you follow my timeline, and pretty much I'll spew crap at you endlessly.
Love it. Well, Steve, always a pleasure learning from you and talking to you, brother. So thanks for being on the show again with us, and we cannot wait to see you again soon.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a happy holiday. Merry Christmas. Hanukkah, whatever the hell else is on the list. I guess Kwanzaa. Is there something else I'm missing? We got Christmas, we got Hanukkah, we got Kwanzaa. I'm sure there's something else. Oh, when's Boxing Day? That's like the 26th, right?
That's Boxing Day is the day after Christmas usually, I think.
Yeah. So let's throw the Canadians in there too. Go Boxing Day.
That's right. All right. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, brother.
All right, viewers and listeners, thank you guys so much for being the best part of How About That Cigar Live. We so appreciate you spending another wonderful Monday night with us. Click on all the big, beautiful buttons, if you would, please. The like button, the follow button, the subscribe button. And if you're listening after the fact on the audio podcast, let us know by making sure to follow that audio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. If you have questions for any of us, you can find us on the website, howaboutthatcigar.com. Be sure to follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. You will find us at HBT Cigar. And of course, as always, until we see you guys next time, burn cigars,
not bridges.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Any comments, opinions, viewpoints, or statements presented or uttered by guests on the HBTC podcast, HBTC live video streams, and all other media from HBT Media LLC are solely those of the individual and do not necessarily represent the opinions or viewpoints of How About That Cigar or its parent company, HBT Media LLC, any of our advertising partners, or the premium cigar industry. The primary purpose of How About That Cigar is to entertain and to encourage activity and growth within the community of people who enjoy or want to learn about the enjoyment of premium cigars.